Joining us now, Heidi Heitkamp, former senator of North Dakota. She's now the director of the University of Chicago's Institute of Politics and a CNBC contributor. And Judd Gregg, who served as senator and governor of New Hampshire. And if you watch the show, what you're looking at right there is something we see quite a bit. And Heidi's always up here. That's fine. Judd's always down. Maybe we ought to alternate, but she's always... Heidi, you always seem to have the high ground, but that's okay.
Yeah, but isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Somehow, Mike Johnson became Speaker unanimously. Is that an indication that maybe even the difficult Republicans to wrangle might also go along with him on this just to preserve the peace? That's what they did the first time around. I mean, maybe this will pass.
Well, you would assume that, but, you know, he had a bad week. He had to pull two spending bills off the floor because he didn't have the votes. You know, this is rare that a speaker would put a bill on the floor and not have the votes to pass it. And it's not a good look for Johnson. I think he is trying to scramble to try and figure out how does he keep this very, very difficult coalition together. And maybe there's enough of a honeymoon left that he could actually pass this. But I think it's a no-go in the Senate because it doesn't have any additional appropriation for Israel or for Ukraine. And so what does he do when the Senate rejects this proposal and he has to build a caucus position? And this is what got McCarthy in trouble, right? Compromising with Democrats. So I think we're in a wait and see. Is the honeymoon going to get him over the hump here? Doesn't look like it based on what Marjorie Taylor Greene said.
Judd, I think people really don't like the big omnibus right before Christmas that no one reads. So they're going to be intractable. Where do you see the compromise being, or do you see it being reached here? Will this work, Judd? That's what they're trying to do, I guess, satisfy both sides. It's almost impossible. You can't please all. You ever hear that? Can't please all the people all the time, Judd?
Yeah, and in this case, you don't have to. You just have to please 217 or 216, depending on whether the Rhode Island House member is sworn in. But as a very practical matter, this is a very conservative approach. This is a win for conservatives. You're basically freezing government spending right into February. That's almost half the year. And it's really, once you've gotten half the year behind you and you haven't spent any more than you spent last year, that's a step in the right direction if you happen to be fiscally responsible and trying to reduce spending. So I can't understand why the House Republicans wouldn't pass this over to the Senate. It's the hot potato. Give it to the Senate. Let them try to figure out how they're going to get something that can pass the House and send it back. But if the Republicans in the House do their job and send it over there, then the onus is off them, at least briefly, until the end of the week. So it seems to me it's a reasonable approach. It also gets past the Christmas omnibus, as you point out. But we've got these members in the Republican caucus who don't appear to want to govern. They appear to just want to shout. And they have to know that what they're arguing about here is how many CRs can dance on the head of a pin. This has almost no effect on the long-term fiscal health of the country. You're talking 14% of the federal budget, and a small percentage of that percentage is what you'd affect by a CR, whereas the big numbers, which are entitlement spending, aren't being addressed at all. So this is a lot of a charade as far as I'm concerned when it comes to conservatives claiming they're trying to cut more spending, because they can't cut enough spending out of 14% of the budget to actually accomplish anything. So pass the bill, send it to the Senate, let the Senate worry about it, and then they can see where they go from here. But show they can govern and pass the bill.